say no. No. Yes. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's 1, 2. When do you want to?
Okay. Oh, hi, sign. Thank you. All right. It is. Can everybody hear me? How about now? Hello? Are we good? I don't. No? Hello? 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 There we go. Oh, now we're good. All right. Hi. All right. It is Tuesday, November 13th, 2018. It is 7:01, and this is a workshop for the City of Woodland Council in regards to budget. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Graham?
Here.
Councilmember Rounds?
Here.
Councilmember Plaza?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Humbert?
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Here.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Here.
Yes, there are. Can you grab one? All right, everyone's here and accounted for. Tonight's workshop is to go over the budget calendar one more time and also to speak to revenue sources. November 19, 2018, the ordinance/resolution on property tax final reading, and that is that 1% increase as allowed by law. And ordinance on 2019 proposed budget and public hearing first reading will be at the regular council meeting on the 19th. November 26, 2018, special meeting budget workshop if needed, and that would be in addition to this evening's meeting if council is still needing more work. If not, this evening will be our last meeting on the budget. December 3rd, adopt ordinance for 2019 budget final reading, and that would be the budget itself. Is that first reading or final reading on the 3rd? Final? Okay. Potential final reading if we go further past this evening. Questions on the budget calendar? Okay. Moving on to section B on the agenda this evening is revenue sources and property tax and levy rate estimate. Mrs. Ripp, is this the one we're looking at? No. Property tax and levy rate estimate. Do we have...
That was presented at the last meeting before the public hearing
Okay.
and on first reading.
That one went to first reading?
Yeah, it is on page 3 of tonight's agenda.
Okay. Page 3 in your packet, yes.
The same ordinance and resolution in the packet, so it's a repeat.
Can you explain for the council, there was a question that was asked on the decrease and how that works, because we would be passing a 101% increase, but the overall is a decrease in tax. Can you explain that?
So, in order to get your levy rate,
Right,
you
sorry.
divide the assessed value by the dollars collected, and that gives you your levy rate. So our estimated levy rate for 2018 was a little over $1.93, and because our assessed value has now increased, that in effect decreases our levy rate to $1.85, or rounding at $1.80.
Okay.
Per thousand.
And that's only the city's portion. That is not the entire tax bill.
Right.
So in essence, the property tax for the citizens will be decreasing in 2019, the amount they pay.
On the city's portion.
On the city's portion.
Depending on what their assessed value is.
Okay. Even with the 1% increase. Okay. Thank you. Further questions on that? Okay. Moving on to water and sewer rates. Okay. In front of you, you've got I don't know what size paper. Is this 11? This isn't 11 by 17. What is this? This is legal. 8.5 by 14. Thank you. It's been a while. So across the top, when it says 2018 rate, that very first line of numbers, going across the top, that's currently what this. What's that? Oh, Darlene.
To our audience.
Or Mrs. Johnson, sorry. That's currently what the city is taking in for sewer, garbage, recycling, and then the public utility tax at 6.5%. And if you go all the way over to the 302,000 plus some there, is that what we're taking in this year or what we've taken in to date?
That would be the 2019 estimate of the 7% increase.
Yeah, I was looking at the very top
Oh,
line.
302, that
Yeah.
is our 2018
End of year.
estimate.
For end of year. Okay, so when you go down to the 7% increase, and Mrs. Rip has put a large box around it, that would occur in February if passed by council, and that going all the way across at the 6.5% utility tax rate, public utility tax rate. That 321 is the estimated collection. So up just under $20,000. Well, that 18,874,000.
So I have one
Yes.
point just to make is when I asked our utility clerk to give me numbers, she gave me a 1-year picture, so these might not be exactly tied into the document, but they're close.
Okay. So they're okay.
So just to clarifying, if I take this document here, where it says the PUT tax collection at 316,695, you see that number?
Yes, that's why it's off, because she gave me
Okay.
a year look back. and
Because
so
it's
I
off when I
used
use
that
this to
figure.
calculate the difference.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's off by just a
It's off by
couple thousand.
$12,000.
Okay. So the question was proposed at the last workshop, I believe, or maybe it was councilman, I can't remember exactly, by Councilmember Fredericks. If we kept rates at the same, at the 2018 rate, and did not do the 7% increase on utility rates, but in turn raised the public utility tax from 6.5 up to a number that was not established during that meeting, it appears that we've got a 7.5 and an 8.5% utility tax increase here. We did discuss this during executive staff meeting, and at this time, we're not advising that the 7.5% increase in February be removed at this time, due to the fact that our budget document that has been given to you accounts for the increase in the revenue for that utility rate and the projects that Ms. Coleman has slotted for 2019 will be extremely affected by that. When it comes to utility tax, of course, we didn't count on that going up or down, just staying stagnant where it is, but the 7% increase on utility is based on the projects that are before you.
Thank you for creating the information so it was visible. This helps. Just to having an understanding of the revenue that's being created from the existing tax, I think is helpful. So this will be something that I'm sure you'll have to keep handy for future years, because it'll be something that comes up, I'm sure.
Questions or comments on the document before you now, when we're talking about water and sewer rates? Okay. Moving on to the gambling tax. Gambling tax revenue ordinance number 1420, resolution 707. Oh, wait. What did I just do? Oh, there. Oh, what did I do? Am I right? Oh, there we go. Gambling tax. Do we have... Did I see a document with the gambling tax on it?
I did not include a gambling tax in there because I gave it to the finance committee today, but
Oh.
some of it has proprietary revenue information in it, so I didn't.
Gotcha, we didn't distribute it.
Fill in it.
Okay,
Fill
gotcha.
it out.
It's available through a public records request.
Okay. Okay. So when we talk about the gambling tax revenue back in, let's see, this is going to be 1918. Back in 2017 is when the new casino up the road opened, Ilene. Prior to that, in 2016, conversations between myself and the owners of the Oak Tree and Mr. Boyce were had, and the request was made that a decrease from 4% down to 2% by the casino, because council was getting ready to raise the rate to 5% on the tax. A compromise was reached and council passed a 3% rate, and that is what we're at right now. With the expectation and the understanding that we would be revisiting that into August of 2017, which we did, and revenues had gone down slightly from the casino opening, but I don't believe that we've gone back and looked again to see what those revenues look like now that it's been roughly, will be 2 years this spring. So the conversation has not been had in going back with an increase, nor have we been approached by the casino to decrease again due to a struggling nature with the business. So at this time, that is a source of revenue, and that's what tonight's workshop is about, is talking revenues that are available. And you've got a sheet in front of you just so everyone kind of has it, revenue sources and tax rates. I believe it was given to you last week. And I think there's a utility tax breakdown on that one. So you don't have this one tonight?
I didn't bring it.
Okay.
No. I had my hands full.
So that's it.
I forgot.
So I think the conversation is really where is it that the city can gather revenue from, the sources that we can. And we've got this kind of a cheat sheet, I would call it, or breakdown on what we're collecting now and kind of where the money's going. The highlighted items on this sheet is where council can make changes.
Do you want me to go make some copies?
Who do you have? Who needs a copy?
2, 3, 4.
Janice does. Mike.
So maybe 5, Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Johnson.
I don't know.
So
Thank you.
Yep.
No, that's
yes, you can. That wasn't me saying that. For the record.
He's making a run for it.
We'll stand by. Oh, that gives me time to eat a cookie. Yeah, there's some right over there, sir. Absolutely, I did. I've been slaving over the stove all day. I make cream puffs too if you want one.
Oh.
Oh my God, they're on sale. Mrs. Johnson's looking at me like I'm crazy. Look at him take credit for everything. Ask my wife. I took credit for birthing the babies as well.
She's not looking at you like you're crazy. She knows you're crazy.
For those watching at home, we're just standing by for some coffees.
I know I have.
Probably sitting at home watching. What are they doing?
It's okay. She's making a copy, so
See.
I won't lose the second one.
So those copies are coming. So a report was given to Finance Committee. And who's on Finance Committee? Mr. Fredericks, Mrs. Rounds,
Carl.
Mr. Chapman. So with that said, I think I will defer to the chair of the Finance Committee, who probably has more information than I do on the gambling tax.
Oh, you put me on the spot.
I did.
Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. Just while you're waiting for those other copies. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Just, do you have anything to add?
Let's see this.
No.
We're going to hit that one here in just a second.
Bear with me for just a second.
Sorry.
I don't even know what I did with them.
The one that you were sharing?
We were, weren't we? Never really been good at sharing. So we
Thank you, Mr. Goddard.
are on pace to receive an estimated $82,800. Does that sound about right?
In
Gambling.
for.
Thank you.
I have to look at my calculator.
Total. Here's your.
Oh, there's your quarters. Okay, gotcha.
That's not right. No, I'm sorry.
For 2018, are you talking about our revenue?
Yes.
I'm sorry. The estimated revenue for is
115.
115,565. That number.
Okay. That's for the whole year.
And the committee was looking at, okay, what would be if we took the rate from 3 to 4, that increases the revenue by 38, thank you, it's already done for me, but apparently I needed to do it myself. 38,521. The discussion at the committee level was to, in essence, keep the rate the same, but start having some proactive discussions with the Oak Tree about starting to move that rate a little bit higher each year, but want to, rather than just throw it on the owner without having some discussions with them, we didn't feel it was right. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
We didn't want to run them out of business.
Correct.
In order to just increase it by 1%, so.
right. They're struggling with some of the same issues that a lot of the minimum wage issue has been an issue for them. Just the cost of doing business has gotten greater, and they're struggling with the A. The cost to bring in folks to gamble at the Oak Tree, that cost is rising for them. So I think it's important that we have them part of that discussion. I think that would be the appropriate thing to do. So that's kind of that's what we decided at the Finance Committee tonight. But we also said, hey, a majority of the council might decide that they want to do something different.
I
So that's
agree
where we
with the
left it.
finance committee. I think that they've been here a long time. We've tried to be upfront with them and what was going on and make it work for them. We don't want to lose their business. We want them to continue. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and the revenue, it's about 1 or 2 cars, police cars, because that's what it goes
Yeah.
through for. It's pretty close.
I was going to say, let's discuss what that money is actually used for.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
going in general fund dollars. It's actually going towards public safety.
Right.
Yep, right.
Okay.
So that's all I have to report on it,
Okay.
unless anyone has any questions.
Well, we can come back to that. Unless somebody has some questions, we'll come back to that as we go through our sheet here that Mr. Goddard just provided to some that didn't have theirs this evening. But it sounds like, any other thoughts or discussions on that, on what was discussed at Finance Committee this evening? Okay. Mrs. Graham, sorry.
I might have just a silly question when I see this down here under the gambling tax. It says bingo and raffles.
Mm.
Does that fall into anything for Planners Day?
Oh, that's a great question.
It's a nonprofit.
There's a tax on bingos and raffles, and then it's broken down by for-profit and non-profit, so we have to look up with
So if it's
Okay.
nonprofit,
It's a nonprofit.
there's no tax, or if there, what?
I have to go back and read. I don't think that we had to file it, but I think most of it used to be the receipts we got were pull
Punch bowls? Yeah.
It was pull tabs.
Pull tabs,
It was
basically.
pull tabs.
tabs, and then if there was any prizes paid out, then it was Grossman's prizes.
Right.
Well, I saw this the other day, and that was a thought.
Yeah, I'll
If
look.
that has anything to do with
It hasn't in the past.
what the criteria was for it. Okay.
There you go. Probably not.
So that's fine. That's a great question. Okay. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's gonna look it up.
Okay, perfect.
Let me know.
Okay, Lodge and Tax Advisory Committee report to council. You have that before you in tab 5. Tab 5. An email was sent to council. So early on, when the budget was given to you, there was a recommendation by myself to make a change to the recommendation. Those numbers have not changed in the budget, just so everyone is aware. And I believe I sent an email off to you informing you. So it still stands at, where's our LTAC recommendation here? $50,000 to the info center, $100 to Hot Summer Nights, Planters Day Committee for $5,000, Lilac Gardens for $5,800, Get Bold event, which is the Blooms to Brews, for $2,500, and a new triathlon coming to town, Y Racing, for $2,500. The big idea is still pending, but we believe that that's not going to follow through with anything, I don't think. So that's what will be in the line items, is that $65,900, leaving a ending fund balance of $50,446. So I know that was some discussion early on, but that has not changed. Council discussed reconvening the LTAC to discuss my recommendation and their recommendation and come to an agreement of why they support or don't support that. So that Mr. Randolph has sent off an email, and I don't know if everybody, but the question, no. So the question came forward of, can we still approve the budget because the law requires that LTAC be notified 45 days prior to the final budget being approved, which would be December 3rd. If everything goes off this evening and we're done discussing the budget or doing budget workshops, they would need 45 days. The question was posed, can we still approve the budget and still go back and reconvene? Can council request that the LTAC be reconvened and then adjustments to the budget be made if they choose to do so? And the answer was yes. Amendment can be made. Did I get that right?
Yes, we just have to give them notice that you're making a change.
Okay.
From their recommendation. That's the 45 day.
Okay.
Procedural requirement.
Procedural requirement, give them notice for 45 days, and then, so council does not have to approach them. They can just say, this is what we're recommending, and or this is what was changed in the budget.
So he says, he looked at the AG's recommendation, and he said there's some vague language on there, but what he's saying is that
Oh, okay.
the municipality may award amounts different from the local advisory committee's recommended amounts, but only after satisfying the procedural requirement of RCW 6728-181-1817, Section 2, according to which the municipality must submit its proposed change to the advisory committee for review and comment at least 45 days before final action on the proposal.
Gotcha.
He said if desired, we can do a memo on that, but we can give them notice, and then that could be in your proposal.
Okay. So basically, if council wants to change the recommendation by the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, they have to be notified within 45 days before they do so and allow comment, and allow that comment to come back to council for further review, and then the change can, or the amendment can then be made after that. So that was the question. Did that satisfy the answer? Is the answer satisfactory?
So I think, but you're looking for the answer at this point. Now you're looking for direction on whether or not the council would request that the lodging tax advisory be reconvened and provide them a 45-day notice.
That would be, that's what I'm asking for the direction, yes, if that's what council wants. I can tell you that I've had a few conversations with some folks within the community that would be receiving these funds, and this, to Mr. Frederick's comments that you made with the Oak Tree and their comments with rising costs of employees and minimum wage and those types of things and the cost to operate, this would not be a good year to change that recommendation.
Based upon that, do you find then that it would be inappropriate for the council to reconvene the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee then to review your proposal?
I would advise council not to reconvene the LTAC committee at this time.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. With the expectation conversations will be had in 2019 on a plan. Just had to get that in there.
So
All right.
does that mean then that, I appreciate that, but does that mean that someone is keeping a parking lot of things to bring before us at that should be part of our
Yes.
retreat discussion?
Right, and that will be brought back to the LTAC. board when we meet next year.
Right.
And hopefully the mayor will be able to give us his thoughts prior to the meeting, so we have them to discuss at the meeting, because we talked about what
Yeah.
did the mayor want, he didn't show up, we didn't have anything, so that's
Well.
how we got what he got.
Serves him right, I guess, huh?
Serves them right. Serves them right. All right. Questions on the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee? Its recommendation. All right. Seeing no hands, go up. Enhancement summary, 2019 enhancement summary. And what is that?
Page 17.
Page 17. Thank you.
17 of the.
Custom green, well, mine's green, I don't know if it's green on there.
Well, but-
Page
Drive safe.
Sure you don't want to stay for the whole meeting?
You'll get timing.
See you Monday.
So,
I just see it Thursday night.
Oh, yeah,
Mrs. Rip, so I made a mistake. I printed off my agenda, and there's two choices. It's agenda or agenda with packet, and I didn't realize there was an agenda with packet. So the summary that you created, I really appreciate it, but I don't have it. It's,
We'll have it up there in a
okay.
I
can't make
Oh.
Oh, it's 17 in our packet, okay.
Here, use the back of my.
Well, this doesn't make
You
any
don't have it?
sense.
No.
It's page 17 of this agenda.
In the packet, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking in the book. and
I,
going,
do you want more copies?
Because I actually did it.
Yeah.
Pick and choose your battles.
All right.
I wasn't gonna win that one.
Do we need more copies?
Yes, please.
Find a Coca-Cola back there. Bring that up too.
Guess I'll eat another chicken.
Is there
No,
one
don't
back
bring
there?
it. We'll get done faster.
I knew there was one back there.
It was my fault. I was supposed to bring them for you.
I brought myself one, but I had a finance committee meeting first, so it was already done.
I've got them. That you.
We're gonna have to start thinking when we bring treats to bring a Coke.
Well, he railed me last night because I gave him a warm one.
Yeah, milk.
Yeah,
They're nice and cold too.
they're not addicting.
Got a whole sleeve of them,
Oh.
just with your name on it, just like waiting. This last time I left him out, he
And
got
then the
mad.
sugar and the milk.
That's not
right
cold.
to the big spoon.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with this?
Fix it when the lactose intolerant kicks in, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should just set it out by the front door and then we can tell him it's there when it's done.
I'd like to remind everyone we are on the record.
Thank you for that.
Do you need me to sign anything while I sit here?
Can I get you to sign anything while you sit there?
No.
Oh,
you
do I need you to sign anything?
Yeah.
No, sir.
No, I was supposed to swing by today. I'm sorry, I forgot.
I don't have the contract.
Oh.
So thank you.
I didn't do it.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard.
Thanks.
I got one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
You got it.
Extra cookie.
I was doing okay on that one, cut wax.
Okay. So in front of you, you have the, what are we calling this? Enhancement summary as requested in a somewhat of a line item graph, for, I wouldn't call it a graph, just a line item to make it simpler to see as an overview. Community Development has requested a full-time associate planner. That was not funded, but that is the first priority of the Community Development Department. When we go into the Police Department, the first priority would be 3 full-time officers with salary, benefits, training, equipment, totaling 500 and just under 600,000. Moving on to priority number 3 for the Police Department, that would be a administrative sergeant at 219, just a little under 219, or a little over. Hold on a second. Where's Mr. Boyce? He's better at the numbers than I
You can
am.
read it.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if you wanted it read in or not. Okay. We have 25 items here. We'll just start with there. We've got 25 items that are on the list, ranging in priorities for each department, and we have funded 14 of those. So just a little over half have been funded and that's in your budget document. Questions on the priority list or what's been funded and what has not been funded at this time?
This is very helpful. If we could have this going forward, included in the preliminary budget would be very helpful. Just to summarizes it all on one page, and then if we want the detail, we can look to find the detail.
This is awesome.
The police chief isn't here. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can ask.
Sergeant Libb,
Yes, sir.
are you under the impression that you're only getting one vehicle in 2019?
That was the impression I was given.
And is that impression,
That'll take us out of our natural rotation. We'll be down a vehicle by doing that. We should be replacing 2 vehicles.
okay?
Didn't,
And the total vehicle cost, if memory serves me with everything, is about 54?
It's gonna be up a little bit more. We just looked at the state bid rates. We're the 2020, they're not doing an 019 model for the Ford Explorer.
Uh-huh.
It's gone up $4,000 base price.
So 58 total, all-in costs, push bar, lights,
Probably be that or a little bit under.
okay.
I thought the discussion we had that we were funding both those vehicles though
We were increasing the 55 to 58.
to 58, but council is being asked to fund an additional vehicle at 58.
Did that come on a different line? I know that there was talk about that.
There was talk about, but I thought,
112 or
Wasn't
something.
one in the budget,
Well, I
one
had-
is
I-
the
Already won the
enhancement?
budget. We're just-
I might have missed that, but I haven't changed it, we can.
I think
One has been budgeted already.
Yeah,
The
one's
only
already
thing
in the
is
budget,
one
and this was the
For
second.
50.
Yeah.
for 50
We had
and
53
Oh,
and
it was a little
58.
bit short.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
They
no,
were a
it's
little bit short,
Yes.
that's
We're
what
trying
it
to get
was.
it to
Yes.
58.
And
Okay.
that would fund too.
Yes.
Right now, there's only one in the.
There's only one in the budget. Okay. So police department's asking for an additional, okay, I'm tracking here.
Does that make sense?
This is making
Yeah.
sense to me now. So 58 has been funded
Right.
and we're asking for, the police department's asking
Another
from
58.
another
I think-
58 for,
I think the 53 was the sedan and the 58 was a SUV. Is that right?
The sedan's only, the production life of that's only the next couple months and it's done.
Okay, so they gave us,
Once done with the period.
they gave us
It's only
two
gonna be
numbers.
the
Okay.
utility vehicle.
and I think the discussion we had internally was that we were going to ask for additional 58 and that money would come out of the gambling tax
Correct.
revenue.
Correct.
So that's direction that we need from council. And if the chief would hear, he was here, he would be advocating for that as well. I'm going down the list here. Other questions on things that have been, items that have been funded or not funded?
Well, this one's funded. Mhm.
Ms. Coleman, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have this in front of you? Okay. As I go down the list here, it's similar to the police vehicle line items. You've got a line item for street lights to LED, 25,000. You've only budgeted 25,000 for that. The additional 28,000 is not funded. Can you please explain? You may have already done that, but just to refresh council's memory.
Yeah, basically, I was trying to find cuts to make the budget balance, so I figured that I could cut it out of LED because they weren't as critical as some of the other items, so I just took that cut out where I could, of items that I could think. And then, after I went to the conference, 2 weeks ago, I found out that 25,000 might take us farther than what we thought, so that's kind of was a good cut to make.
Okay, good. And I know that we've discussed that, that was just for refresher there.
Yeah, so anything that's, that is lower than the amount requested is because I took out budget numbers to make the budget balanced, based on what I thought we could do without temporarily.
Okay. When we look at the Horseshoe Lake management, I know that that's always a hot topic. How is,
But that was supposed to be 5,000, it's not supposed to be 2,500, so that's incorrect. There was 5,000 in the budget, and then also I don't see the bucket truck on here, so I want to bring that up. It's right above that.
It's number 18.
It's number
Not
18.
the bucket truck, sorry, the dump truck, I apologize
Dump
for that.
truck, right.
Dump truck's not on there.
Dump truck. has
So
to
the
run
Horseshoe
higher.
Lake management really is 5,000, not 2,500.
Okay, so I missed the dump truck.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just
See
wanted
that
to
number
make sure.
8 that's blank? Write it in there.
Yeah.
Right, dump truck. And what's the budgeted
It
amount
was
for?
1/3 each.
Oh, 1/3 each
Right.
out of.
I think it was $23,333 each.
Okay.
And that is sewer, street, and water?
Yes, yes.
Does the street fund have enough to cover its third if we were to approve it?
I did cut out of street, which is part of that LED repairs to cover the third. That is correct. There
And
would
there's
be-
been a change to the
And I
fleet.
took money out of, and I've taken money out of roads as well. Because the dump truck, I don't know if you guys know, but I sent an email out that it caught fire. So,
Change to the fleet.
Well,
I
so
missed that
it
email.
needs to-
I saw something about the dump truck, but there was no information about the dump truck.
Well, just that it caught fire, and I'm glad that we have it in the budget for a replacement.
Nobody
yeah,
was
but I
hurt.
didn't see that.
And nobody was hurt.
And it's not in the budget?
It is in the budget.
Is it in the budget? It
It's
just
in-
got missed
it's
on
in
this
the
light item.
balance
So it's
budget.
already funded? Well, that's a beautiful thing.
Okay.
Oh, it's not on any of this.
So if you
Okay.
can increase the Horseshoe Lake management to 5,000 and then add the 23,333 times 3.
3.
But that 5,000 was budgeted in to balance.
Yes, it
Okay,
was.
got
Yes,
it.
it was.
So no action needed. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I should have just done it for you. I apologize, Mary. I should have done that for you.
And moving into the clerk treasurer's office, as you can see, similar to the community development department, nothing was funded there.
Well, may I go
Oh,
back up? I apologize.
that's
I just
okay. We'll go
noticed
back to
something else,
Public
too.
Works.
The jet rotor back truck was funded as well for 400,000. And I think it was, I don't know, it was 400 or 440. So that actually was funded as well in the balance budget. The jet rotor back truck, yes.
So the 11 is fully funded, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Number 11 is funded.
Yes.
Ms. Rip,
17.
is that in the budget? Can you
It
verify
is.
that?
I'll have to look, but Tracy says
It is.
Well, if you say it is and she says she has to look, which one is it?
It is. It is. Because I went through, Mary's looking at every department's, and so, I mean, Pete and Mary and I sat down together, and we
Okay.
went through it, and she balanced it as we went through it. And so I have all those items, I know what was in it, and it probably was just missed because she has a lot of other items on her plate right now.
sewer. I'll look.
So it actually brings the list up to 26 with 16 being funded.
The problem is I don't have all my side notes on here. I'll have to look in the office because my spreadsheet has all the notes up to the side.
Anything else, Ms. Coleman?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. Oh, I guess not. I guess there were still 25 because 8 was just blank. So there's still 25 items with
8 was supposed to be the dump truck.
8 was supposed to be the dump truck. Okay.
I didn't get to check it.
With 16 being funded. So back to my final comment there. Community development and the clerk treasurer's office have both departments have items that they would like funded as well, but those were not funded within your budget. Questions on the list?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
For me.
Not yet for you?
I will
Okay.
have number 4 on here to discuss.
Okay. All right.
Just one question.
Mr. Plaza.
This is under the police, under number 2, for three full-time employees. Is that 3 in additional to the 10, 13 altogether, or?
That's in
just-
addition to.
Additional.
Okay.
3 additional, yeah.
Right, right on, okay.
All equipment.
Okay.
I got a question.
Mr. Chapman.
Officer, is that all the 3, and then you want a sergeant too? So
That's separate down
does
below.
that be second, does that be actually 4 bodies with you?
Right.
At all, best scenario, you'd like to have four more bodies?
That's what the chief.
Chief, okay, that's what I want to make for sure.
Okay. So that comes to the end of the items on the agenda. So if I could direct everyone to the revenue that we didn't get to discuss at the last meeting, which would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3. These three, I believe it was these three. Was this one part of last week's, Mr. Goddard? Or was that discussion previous?
That was from the manager's meeting, or department head meeting, and I talked to the finance
Okay,
about that.
so that's not part of this. Okay. Okay, so I'll direct you to the revenue sources and tax rates. Under property taxes, levy lid lift requires a voter approval. That would be similar to what we asked when we went to vote in November of 2017 for the police officers. General business and occupation taxes. We currently, the City of Woodland does not charge businesses that fee. Business licenses, the city fee resolution, and that's something that will probably be discussed during next year when we start talking about fees. There are no restrictions on the public utility tax rates for water, sewer, garbage, recycling, and stormwater utilities. Currently, right now, the city is at a rate of 6.5%. Mrs. Ripp gave you the sheet this evening indicating up to 7.5% and 8.5% on the utility rate increase. Those dollars are all general fund. Those don't go back into the water sewer fund.
They can be, what can you raise them to?
There are no restrictions.
Okay.
You threw me off my game there for a second.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just thinking. And then if you go to I believe everyone did receive this sheet as well at some point. I can pass this down. That was earlier on. And that is in regards to the public utility tax as well. And there's a few different scenarios on there, estimated 10%, 12%, 14, and 16%, and what those revenues would come in at. There's another revenue source. Flipping the page over, commercial card rooms and games. We discussed that this evening. The gambling tax has fluctuated in the past, and currently right now we're at a 3%. And based on the discussion that was here this evening, I don't think that that's something that we want to discuss, but we will into 2019. Dropping down to transportation benefit districts. Council has an opportunity to impose a $20 per vehicle non-voter approved license fee to vehicles that are registered within the city limits of Woodland, or a sales tax of 0.2%, which we've tried twice and has failed. Impact fees, obviously that's an ongoing discussion. Fees, charges, and permits, again, that's an ongoing discussion. Mr. Goddard just updated his here recently and went through and made some adjustments, not to all, but to some. So those are all topics of conversation for council. Questions? Comments?
Not on that.
Okay. You've got something on your mind. We're getting there.
Well, we'll get
I know
there.
we're getting there. That's just where we can find revenue. Obviously, times are tight. We're stagnant from last year. We're at this almost relatively same fund balance starting in 2019 as we did in 2018. So when we start talking about the cost of living and why things aren't getting done or why it's taking so long to save money to get projects done, when we talk about our street fund, for example, we saved for I don't know how many years and then completely decimated the account by paving Old Pack Highway from the intersection here out to the freeway. And now we're going to be struggling for the next few years until we figure out where we're going to get that money just to do general maintenance. So we're going to get creative. So this is an opportunity to open up that conversation and ask council if there's any changes or anything that they would like to see on those highlighted items for revenue sources for the city. Mrs. Ripp.
It also, in many of our discussions that we had during the preparation of the budget and also with Tracy, Public Works Director, we talked about grant matches. And with a lot of the things that we want to apply to the grants, if we don't have matching funds, then we pretty much don't have opportunity to receive the grants.
which is an opportunity to open up the conversation with Ms. Coleman right now. Currently, right now, estimate how many grants do we have that we've applied for?
6 to 8.
And what is the dollar figure that would be coming into the city if those were granted?
If I can think off the top of my head, 4.5, maybe $6 million.
Okay.
And out of that, $400,000 matching
For all of it.
for all of it.
So we would have to come up with 400,000 in order to receive
Yeah.
$4 to $6 million in
6,
product
Because it's anywhere from 10 to 20%.
or services. Yeah. And can you kind of give a rundown of what those are?
So we have 2 grants that we applied for on State Route 503, both at $1.4 million. One is from the intermediate school to Gun Club Road for sidewalks and drainage improvements there, curb and gutter. And then also the other $1.4 million is from Gun Club Road to Scott, coming up around the corner actually to Gary. That's sidewalk, curb and gutter. And then we have a $800,000 grant for Horseshoe Lake for ADA handicapped accessibility, recycled cans, new garbage cans, ADA picnic tables, a pathway connecting both parks together, splash pad, and there was one other thing, but that was 800. I think it's 800,000. Put me on the spot.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I have the whole grant list.
So I guess what I'm getting at is, if all those were to come through, does the city have the ability to match the
No.
$400,000?
No. So the biggest one right here is what we're looking at right here. If you look at, we ranked 41st out of 96 or some at the Horseshoe Lake RCO grant. And we would need on that particular grant there, that was a 50-50 match. That's a different grant. It's only available every 2 years. So we would need $300,000 for that. And part of that, to get into that grant, you have to have people donate their time and equipment, which we had a lot of businesses here that would donate, we have donation of sand, donation of materials, donation of time, equipment. And that alone was $370,000. And so right now, we don't know if we get that grant, we probably will have to give it back because we don't have the matching funds available.
But the donations of time and material don't count towards our matching fund?
They do, but still, you're looking at $378,000, so we're still probably gonna have to come up with $250, and that's all out of park or impact fees, et cetera. We don't have enough.
We can't use the park impact fees for that, though, correct? Because it's not.
We can for some of it if it's capital, that's
okay.
correct.
If it's capital, okay.
Yeah, but then you wipe that account out.
Right.
So, and then, we have the Scott Avenue. We applied for a grant there at Scott Avenue from Pacific to the railroad tracks. So we applied for that grant. We're supposed to be receiving those funds, and that's $150,000 that we need matching for that, and that's a $1 million project.
And what is that, Tracy?
Pardon?
What is it?
What grant is it?
What's the project?
What's the project?
The project is for an entire entire road rebuild. So tear out the old and put in the new. And there's an asbestos sewer line that goes. Is it water or sewer?
Sewer, I think you said.
I think it's sewer line. Yeah, that goes down that road that we need to put in there too and replace that sewer line as
And
well.
how much is the matching on that?
$140,000, not very much. It's pennies, But you couldn't even touch that road. It's $1 million project, and we're looking at $140,000 for matching.
Is that anything we can take out of general fund?
Well, so no, I have money. Well, there's no money in the general fund for that, but I do have money out of water and sewer. If we have to replace the line, I could take part of it out of a water or sewer line. That's why these water sewer fees are so critical, because if we go in and we do a road and we have to replace a water line or a sewer line, I can use part of the water sewer funds to use as matching dollars, where I don't have to take it all from streets.
Traffic impact fees, can you take some from there?
If it's capital project, I can take some from there. That's correct.
Enough.
And I did, and all the ones that I showed in the budget for matching, I showed where I was taking the funds from. If I was taking them from traffic impact fees, so there was line items that showed for grants, and I said where I was taking those funds from to match.
So-
one I don't have for is for that splash pad.
We're getting off topic here just a little bit. We're just diving in. I think the information's good. Do we know how much money is in our traffic impact fee account at this time?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I apologize.
Okay.
I didn't bring that with me. I apologize.
Hold on.
I can go over and get it though.
No, we have an estimated fund balance.
You look at so many numbers,
Yeah.
it just kind of all blends together.
So we estimated our beginning fund balance at $62,584. Oh, excuse me, that's ending fund balance. That was after we spent budgeted monies for a portion of our feasibility study. 28,500 went to the CDBG sidewalk project. 140,000 is going to the safe routes to schools.
Okay.
Almost 35,000 is going to the COG SPP Exit 21 study. And then 93,000 is going to the Westcott reclamation and the railroad track.
That's the Westcott
Okay.
reference.
So that leaves 62,584 in our transportation impact fee.
Okay. So I guess I bring up this conversation because at some point we're going to have a serious conversation and say thank you so much for the $1.4 million, but we can't take it at this time. And that's why this conversation on revenue and sources for council is so important because, like I said, we are stagnant from last year. We're starting almost similar to where we were in 2018, and we'll be starting almost that same exact spot in 2019 with no change and almost in a more dire position going into 2019, especially when we have projects that need to be done and things that need to be taken care of. And the costs are rising, and we can't keep up with it. So,
Mayor?
yes.
I'd like to make a comment. I had a conversation with Pete, and I believe I shared with you that I advised Pete that I wouldn't be applying for any more grants for this next year because of the fact that after I came in here gung-ho the first year, and after I applied for them all, now we're starting to receive these. My fear is that you have to turn them away because you don't have the matching funds, and then you as a city as a whole, it doesn't look very well on you that you don't know anything about your funding and your balance. And I went into it blindly with the assumption that there was plenty of funds to be able to match $1 million grant with $100,000, not thinking that we wouldn't have $100,000 to match. But again, I applied for 6 to 8 grants, and fortunately, a lot of them are coming our way. But unfortunately, if they do, we really won't have the matching funds for all of them. We'll have to pick and choose. But another thing I want to bring to council's attention, if you don't mind, if I can share, I reviewed our sewer and water, and I'm only talking about the capital plans of our sewer and water. And I want to bring to your attention that the water plan itself, which was done in 2012, in the water plan you have to estimate your population growth and your income and your capital improvements that you're going to do to your overall system. And out of the 8 projects that were outlined that we were supposed to do, we've only completed 1. The other one we're going to complete this year, so therefore we're behind on 6 projects. So we're talking $2.9 million, so $3 million. So I urge you, if you're considering taking funds out of water or sewer, that you don't do that, because you're already behind in your 2012 water plan, and we have a new water plan that's costing us $100,000 to write an update that's due to the Department of Health. And so not only do we have to complete these plans, which part of it is the water reservoir, which you probably need to budget about $2 million for that water reservoir. If you're doing a 1 million gallon reservoir, you're going to also have additional capital projects that are going to be coming up that are recommended for the following 6 years. And I'm not even addressing the 20-year plan. So I just want you to be aware that you have to be very cautious that what's in your plan you guys are not accomplishing. The sewer plan is better. The sewer plan, we've accomplished all but 2, and there are funds in that sewer plan to do. And then we also have $2.2 million that need to be spent in the next 6 to 8 years for the sewer, and that includes a second phase dewatering facility. But I just want you to be aware of after I review these in the capital projects, I urge you not to take money from the water or sewer because you need those funds to keep up your capital infrastructure and to go move forward with the growth in the city. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And we're right on the growth rate of what was projected based on these plans. So,
Mr. Fredericks.
Just a comment and a question. The comment that I would make is that going through this, I would differ on the mayor's statement when he said this year, it's been multiple years of more expense than revenue year after year after year is what we're facing. And when you talk about, I don't mean this as a slam on anything that we've done previous to here, but when you have run a city for years and years and years and you have not had professional management of your city, you start uncovering some of the things that should have been very clear early on that said, hey, this you need to keep in front of you. This is important. And when you start talking about your plan, what you need to do, where your costs are coming, the roadmap ahead for you, that's a little bit what I've been talking about in the past, is that wanting to make sure that we leave the next council, the next mayor, a roadmap of success. And it concerns me that the path that the city is on is unsustainable. Our revenue is not keeping up with the demands that this city requires to run. And so there are hard choices. What level of service do you want to provide in each different department? And if you're going to pay for that level, then you need to start looking either at revenue or big picture. What do you want to do? You want to make some cuts? Because the path that we're on doesn't seem to me to be sustainable at all. And so that's what I hope we can talk about at our retreat. That, in my mind, should be a huge topic. But the $3 million that you raised tonight, my question for Ms. Ripp, we are expiring $190,000 annual payment for a sewer project in 2019. What bonding availability do we have to start addressing some of those $3 million projects in the water fund to tie in? We're expiring a sewer project. How do we go and create the $3 million that she needs to start working on it? We cannot be in a position down the road of having to do this work at more expensive, prices are not going up. We need to start looking at how we can fund the $3 million in projects, because that has to happen. That's not a choice. I don't think we have a choice in that matter. So I would like to see, with that expiring, what do we have that will tie in, and it will create an expense for the water fund, but it will give us the tools that we need. It will give Ms. Coleman the tools to be able to do the work that she needs to do in that department.
So I think what we have to do is we have to have the current plan plus some of the information from the pending plan, and then put together a financing package for how that could be accomplished. Revenue bonds are one funding mechanism. The other, would be paid back through user rates. And then the other one is looking to the legislative opportunities. Public Works Trust Fund used to fund a lot of things. A lot of those went away, but we have to kind of look and see what the legislature's giving the state for funding packages as well.
And the first option that you mentioned, is that council? Is that a council option, or does that require to go to the voters?
Revenue bonds can be council action.
That would be important for us to understand, and I know we're waiting on the water. Are we still waiting on the water study?
yeah, we have not
Sorry.
put out the request for qualifications yet. We're working on the request for qualifications document, put that out.
So in order for us to do that, that's required.
It is required, and it's required this next year.
But you've already signed a contract with the consultant to write the.
To write it, that's correct. And I should have it probably within a couple weeks.
Ms. Coleman, are you finding other things that we're not aware of, because we have not, we only know what we know because someone once told me, we had a council member that told me that we're like mushrooms.
Kept in the dark, picture.
Kept in the dark all day and fed manure. I cleaned that up a little bit.
So what I can share is all the information that you're asking me is available at your fingertips, and not that we have the time to review all this, because I'm
Right.
having a hard time finding time just to review these 3-inch binders myself, and I
Sure.
work in the department. But all this information is available to the public and to council, and like this is just the capital alone, so it's not very big reading. So I've only been here a year, as you know, and so I'm finding things as we go, because I'm finding I have to address items as we go, and trying to get the projects off the ground and budget. So to answer your question, I haven't dug in to find more information, but I'm bringing it forward as I find it. So the vehicles, the roads,
Okay.
the capital improvement plans for the water and sewer, and I'm sure I'll be finding more. I don't know if you want me to find more, but I'm sure I will be finding more, and I will bring it forward as I see it. But as of right now, we have a pretty big challenge ahead of us just for the vehicles, the roads, and the water. And the sewer seems to me to be in pretty good shape. But those 3 items, and the parks. Hate to say it, but the parks.
Well, and that was going to be a topic of conversation here on what Mr. Frederick had said. When we start talking about those tough choices, parks is on the table next year. So
Yeah, I'm concerned about our parks.
this may be the last year that we watered them, if we continue down the same path that we're going, unless we start doing something. And that's going to be a really difficult conversation.
Well, I think it's
to
going to
have.
be difficult to have with the citizens that why is the park only getting mowed once a month?
Right.
Why is the dog feces and the pine cones, why are they not being picked up? I mean, people don't realize that it takes time to go pick up pine cones. It takes time to empty garbage cans. It takes time to clean the restrooms that are destroyed to a degree that they should not be, besides regular use. So these are all things that take time, and so when you're going to have to lock up a public restroom because you don't now have the manpower dollars available to do that, because you don't have the ability in the park fund to pay for those man hours, those are something that you're going to have to address with the public, and they're going to say, why didn't you do something about it? So I don't know the revenue source. I'm just bringing it up to you. It's up to you guys to determine where that revenue source is coming from. I'm not an expert in that field. I'm an expert in getting things done, but not bringing in revenue, unless it's my own personal revenue. So
I think we're all pretty good at
humor,
that.
yeah. So anyway, but those are concerns that I have trying to run the department and making sure that the city is appealing to the public. So, and you're not hitting a pothole, and you're going out to a park and not stepping in dog duty, etc.
I'm going to thank you. I do want to acknowledge Mrs. Round's comment of can't we take it out of reserves?
Reserves.
So by policy right now, we don't even have enough in our reserves account to satisfy council's policy as it is. So by removing those funds, we're putting ourselves even more at risk in case we do have a catastrophic event. Because right now
We
I think,
also want to keep our reserves to a point where we're not affecting our bond rating.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have.
And then
to
there's
keep our
that too.
reserves a certain
Yeah.
way.
And the city of Woodland is not alone in this dilemma. It's happening all over the state, all over the country. If you read the paper, you see that City of Vancouver has just recently adopted some new fees to fund some of their public safety. I read an article in the paper also that said Yakima would have their reserves depleted by 2028 if they don't take some action. So it's going on all over. And we have to take a real hard look at what our revenue sources are, and that we are bringing in enough money as we don't want to increase taxes and fees to our payers. We also don't want our infrastructure and our operations to go down to a certain level where we're not able to maintain grant matches and just regular potholes in the road and things like that. We can only sustain that no increase for so long before it starts showing.
well, we had a conversation internally as well, which was somewhat eye-opening for me because I caught myself in this over the last few years of, Well, if we're charging $20, what's everybody else charging? And we line up all the other cities around us and say, oh, okay, well, they're at 18 and they're at 24, so we're right in the middle, so we're good. Well, our costs are completely different than what those other cities are. And I think that we do that with just about everything. We've had a lot of those conversations since I've been sitting up here for a few years. What's everybody else paying? Well, we got to stop looking at what everybody else is paying and figure out what it takes us to pay to make it work.
Yeah,
So,
you have to look at your infrastructure as a whole, and our infrastructure is older than some of the cities. You know, we're over a 100-year-old city, so you have to look at, we have water lines that have been in the ground for, 80 years. So, some other cities, an example, Ridgefield, they're close, has some new infrastructure that they've been putting in, so they don't have that to worry about, and they have a lot of new businesses come in that pay for that infrastructure going in. So we've had, this town's been around a long time, and we have a lot of old infrastructure. And the sad thing is, a lot of our roads don't have actual asphalt and subbase. They're just gravel that have had some oil put over the top, and it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest. So those roads need to be maintained. So I just want to bring that up, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like times are changing, and people need to pay attention to that.
Ms. Coleman, I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that it's available at the public's fingertips and at our fingertips. So is about 3,500 other items of information.
Correct.
In my closet alone at home, I have 5 legal boxes full of city council stuff for 10 years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information.
What used to be my guest room? full.
Yes, as if we're not, so that to me should be something that is urgent in nature of the $3 million in projects that need to be done, and we need to start exploring a way to pay those once we have all of the information. But I have no doubt that we'll be able to fund those items and get that completed.
Right. I don't have a doubt on that either.
Yeah.
As far as the way our water and sewer rates are right now, I am a little concerned over the water plan that is due this year. I am concerned over the possibility that they may recommend that the water rates go up. I'm just going to share that with you. I've shared that with other citizens that have been in the audience. I'm hopeful it's not, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did recommend that.
At least we'll have something to justify the action that we'll take. I don't have that today.
Right.
okay.
Is it?
So,
Can we ask general budget questions?
unless somebody's got some more questions about revenue or our sources that can be changed at this time, or that we have access to, I should say. All right, I will open it up for general budget questions now of all concerned. And we'll start down here. Anyone? Mr. Plaza?
Oh, I've got all sorts of concerns. I just don't figure out how to put them to work.
Question. Okay. Mrs. Rouse? Seeing no one, it is.
I am.
Oh, Mr. Fredericks, sorry. Mr. Fredericks.
So you provided a detailed, normally I come with a spreadsheet. This year I don't have one. But if you could, if it's possible to look into some line item expenditures that I'm going to ask you, is it possible to provide that information at the next meeting, and I'll actually remember that, Mr. Goddard?
You'll what?
Is it possible just to give you a few to look at? Because it amounts to about $40,000, which will help pay for another vehicle for the police department. I can't figure out legal services under finance and administrative.
It's gone up.
Well, it's 106 was what you used in 2017. We're budgeting for 133.9 in 2018. When I do the math, it puts me at 116 for the year based upon the expenditures through 7 months. So my question is, why do you need an additional $20,000 year over year?
Our prosecutor is retiring, and we are. His name is Fred Johnson. So we are.
have our city attorney.
Yes.
I'm just going off of
Yeah.
history.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
So.
And then also we have union negotiations that are built into that.
Okay.
So we do have some changes that are coming into that, and that's why it's gone up.
Got it. Okay.
But we are exploring other options when it comes to the prosecutor with other cities and trying to get a collective deal versus just a single. So we are exploring going in together on a purchase. I don't know how to explain that. Into a contract collectively. Yeah. A pool. Yes, a pool contract. Thank you.
At the risk of sounding like Scrooge, can someone please explain to me the shop with a cop, how that works? We do $10,000. We did $10,000 in 2018. It's got $6,000 in here spent through 2018, and $10,000 being requested next year.
Money in, money out.
You receiving it from somewhere else? You're put. Thank you. That's what I thought it was.
And they actually are spending, they're building up the gift cards every month, I think it is. They buy a certain amount of them and then put those into the shop at the cop shopping day or whatever. And then when they get to that actual date, then they come in with their cards and they hand them out to the different recipients.
Just received a $10,000 check today.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So that would be it.
This flows in, flows out. That's why I just wanted to make sure that there was revenue that tied in with that expense. Care and custody of prisoners. That one seems to be high to me based upon previous and based upon year-to-date spend. Do we know, are they raising costs at the jail? And if so, does that amount to?
Might be able to answer that
24%
tonight.
increase in 2017.
More arrests equal more days in jail.
Right.
Yes, it does.
It's not going up. We got judges that are imposing longer misdemeanor sentences that are a burden of the city and not the county for the state.
Okay.
The cost is also going up, isn't it?
Well, the
You can look at the, I don't recall what.
The history of what we've spent so far this year
I'll have
does
to
not
look
match that.
I'll have to look and see
Just
if the
based
rate
on
has been
expense.
up or not.
Because there's roughly 10,000 there.
Medical expenses.
That is true.
I can look and see if the rate,
Okay.
what the rate increase is projected with.
That was it. Again, I've gone through this budget for 10 years, line by line. There's not, in my mind, there's not an expenditure problem that we're just, oh, hey, City Hall, they're spending your money, and they're wasting it
Willy-nilly.
down the rabbit hole. I can't find it. If someone else can find it, I can't. I've looked. So then it goes back to that initial discussion of, okay, well, your revenue drives your expense, and the revenue's not cutting it to pay for the existing services that we have, and everybody's telling us your level of service is too low. So,
So then we look at these revenue sources and tax rates, and we look at them and say, oh, cool, but maybe we have to do something with it.
Comes down to that hard discussion.
That's the hard discussion, yes.
I would like you to have that hard discussion now.
Well, the thing is, even with the proposed tax rates that we've got, it's not really gonna bring in enough money to do a whole hell of a lot. As far as I see it, anyways.
well, if you raise the public utility, I'm just speaking out loud here. This is not what I'm advocating for. I'm just discussing. Tell me what, if we were to take the public utility tax rate from the current to the 16%, what is that, I'm
It's
just
just
asking.
discussion.
Just hypothetical speaking. Pony rides in the park. What is that increase in revenue? And I'm looking at this sheet right here. Is it 469,973? Creates an additional 470,000.
Yes, increase from the current dollars is $469,973.
So almost $500,000.
So here's the question that I would ask. That's for streets. I'm getting my proposals mixed up. Okay.
Street is a general fund.
Right, the 469,973 is, would be the increase for the year, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then the one next to it, if you're looking at the chart that's divided by 2, because we were trying to show you what it was per month.
So on a $250 bill, let's do some math here.
That was going to be my question.
On a $250 invoice.
For water, sewer, and garbage, is that what you're talking?
Yes, ma'am. Total,
Okay.
just 200. I'm just taking an invoice for
Yeah.
250.
Okay.
At the current rate, you're going to pay $16.25 in tax
For 6.5%.
for 6.5%. Or $40 for 16%. And obviously, there's a whole bunch in the middle, but that. Basically, it increases your bill by 8.9%. Your overall bill increases 9% on an effective rate of 16% if you move it from 6.5% to 16%. It's at 9%.
In addition to the original 7% increase that's gonna come every year.
That's
I
not
think
tax, that's just an increase in the water bill, isn't it?
that goes into the enterprise fund.
$23.75.
So that's where it goes, but the effect on
Was
citizen is
bill.
the 7% plus the 9%.
Plus the-
But this sheet here, I believe you've already built that in there.
The 7,
The 7% increase in February has
Yeah.
already been built into this
based
sheet.
on the 7% increase at the top.
So if everything goes through, technically, are the citizens getting a tax increase on their utility bill by 13% or 14%?
Or 60.
The difference between 16 and 6.5. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm asking.
They will pay an additional, on a $250 invoice, I'm just throwing that number as it's even.
$23.
They'll pay $11.88 more per month.
per month.
The question then becomes, well, if you're generating $470,000 in revenue, what are you doing with that revenue? What is that paying for?
Are you going to earmark it for certain things?
Correct.
Do we have to earmark it for certain
No,
things? Or?
but I would be,
But
it would be beneficial.
Would be very beneficial if you
But
did
we have
that.
to be able to tell our taxpayers
Right,
where
exactly.
everybody's going, not just,
Exactly.
oh, we decided to do this, we're gonna party.
So in 2012, we earmarked some money for the fire department contract,
Right.
and now we kind of.
You've steered away from that.
We've been supplementing that with property tax, so now we have the one pot, we know we have to fund that every year, so.
I'm with you.
The public utility tax is a general fund revenue, so it can be spent on whatever the council decides to fund in the budget.
So that's like, I would call it a worst case scenario or a best case scenario. I mean, that's going whole hog, and it could be done some other way in between. Assuming that maybe there are other sources here that we could increase that wouldn't all come from the same place.
Well, that's where I'm kind of having a short circuit here. Is, you know, we're talking about raising taxes on the citizens, and, you know, nobody's taking into account the effect that, you know, raising minimum wage and all that has on prices, which means that people will be paying more out of their own pocket, but we're willing to give a pass to hotel people and the casino because we don't want to hurt their bottom line. And I think if we're going to hit somebody, then we need to hit everybody evenly across the board. Not number-wise evenly, but, you know, don't give one person a pass and then put the zap on somebody else.
And I agree, and I don't think we were going to give Oak Tree a pass. I mean, I would not go there.
Well, maybe I
But-
misunderstood. I thought we weren't going to
We're not gonna increase it.
Right.
We need to talk about it.
Yeah.
They need to be involved in the conversation, even if it's 0.5%. I agree, it needs to go up, because everybody's is going up.
Yeah.
But that helps pay for some of our police vehicles. and
Oh,
all that.
exactly.
And if we increase it enough that we run them out of business,
Then we have nothing.
then you have nothing.
Well, we're not gonna have anything if we run our people out of town because we're taxing them and that either.
I guess in my mind is that I would think that we should have a very thoughtful discussion about if indeed we were going to adjust any tax, that we would have a discussion first of, okay, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, and be somewhat on the same sheet of music as to the reason why. I mean, some could argue that, you know what, the 469 goes to, if you pass that number, you know, hey, there's gonna be departments that are gonna, parks gonna want more, the streets are gonna want more, we're gonna have to have more for matching grants. Presumably, the police department's gonna want more. Every department is gonna be holding out their hand, and it's gonna be up to this body to say, no, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do with it. And I don't think we have that today. I don't think we have, we may have some that are totally adamant opposed to any adjustment to the tax rate. Might suggest that the current one is too high. But, you know, there needs to be some sort of plan in place, and that's what I think is missing.
So, we look at first, second, and third enhancement places on there and say, we can't go without this one. We just don't have the money for it.
Right.
And so then you determine what the needs are and then figure out what the resources are going to be to make it work. Because it doesn't make sense to me that we just allow things, that we allow state and federal money to go by the wayside because all the things we need, we can't kick in our 10%. That's just kind of really dumb. So, but there are other things in there too that maybe we ought to be looking at that are in those enhancements that can't be funded by the budget and say, okay, we need X number of dollars in the budget, and then you go after and look at MDs and say, where can we get these? For instance, we're just sitting over here talking about the 0.2% sales tax. Yeah, I guess it's gone down a couple of times. How do we get that? How do we get that voted in?
That approximately is about probably now $275,000 into the road fund. That's what that would gain us over time, and with retail businesses coming in, it would be increased.
And some
Obviously.
of that would depend on my opinion, on what else we were voting on, because both times that failed, we had other big ticket items that didn't fail.
And it was right after the police levy for the new department, so I
Right.
think, yeah, people are a little tax worried at that point.
We don't have dedicated funding for our streets either, which means we rely on sales tax. Is that where it's property or sales
Property
tax?
tax,
Property.
and
I get
fuel
the two
tax.
mixed up with the
Fuel
percentage.
Fuel tax is only
Right.
dedicated.
But we don't have, that's dedicated, isn't it, the fuel tax? But that doesn't amount to what we need. Our street fund is totally depleted. We have nothing that we can do in the streets, I would think, for next year and possibly the year after.
So some item for discussion is that like we collected the gambling tax, we put the money into reserves and then we allocated it after we received it, not
Prior to.
counted on receiving it and then spending it at the same time. So the other thing to be aware of is if you implemented some increases, that doesn't mean necessarily that you have to spend it right now. It can go into reserves, and then the time to figure out what your plan is to allocate that to can also happen.
The only thing I think they're thinking about though, Mary, is explaining it to the public if
Right.
you did something. You can't say, oh, we just wanted extra money in our reserves.
No,
You know, we gotta-
and I'm not saying there'd be
Yeah.
extra
You know.
money for reserve, but you could, hold up the list of things and say these aren't prioritized yet, but here's the whole list of things that
Yeah.
we're needing to get done.
And put this money aside, so it's there to do these as we, it's not like we got this money and we're gonna spend it here.
It's just like if you implemented the 0.2% sales tax, there's a timeline when that goes into effect. You don't automatically get it right this minute, you get it, you know, and then there's a 2-month lag from the state, and then there's this. So if you started, if you put it on the ballot in 2019 and it passed, you aren't gonna see money for that until probably early in 2020. So there's that lag time for it to get into effect, for revenue to notify all their people, when they collect it, when they distribute it, and the whole.
But you have to start.
Yep. You have to start.
Well, it's something that we're gonna have to probably consider down the road at some point, considering everything that's going on. What do we cut in order to fund these other things? I mean, it sucks, but let's be realistic, something probably gonna end up having to slack.
So that's a great point. So then, all right, we can't cut streets anymore because there's no money in the street fund. You can't cut the parks anymore because there's no money in the parks. I'm only talking about general fund items. Police department, 50% of this, nearly 50% of the people that voted in it want additional police, so you're gonna cut there. Fire, and then all the other stuff that's mandated by city or by the state, which you gotta have a clerk treasurer, you gotta have the folks running the organization. Where do you cut? What cuts do you make? That I think is the big question
To
is.
that, I would have led with that at the beginning.
Well,
of the
yeah.
meeting.
Well, I-
But I'm just saying it's something that we may wanna look into.
The other-
Well, we will have to look into it when
When
the
we
economy
run out.
goes in the tank and we get a budget that is not balanced, that's, hey, we're $200,000 short. What are you gonna cut? And that'll be a good conversation. And we've been there before. We were there in 2008, 2009. I know Councilmember Humber can remember, we had city employees in the audience crying because we were determining whether that job was going to stay or if that job was gonna go. And that's where we're headed, in my mind, in the next downturn, if we don't
So
do anything.
we look and we talk in here to this vast audience about the difficulties that are here and the hard decisions that we have to make. When we make them, they're gonna feel them, and then they're gonna be in here, or the comments are gonna come through the emails and social media and all of that about, hey, we could take out half of those people in the office in there, they're not doing anything anyway, what do we have all them there for? So we have to educate, before we do this, we have to educate the community in why we're doing this, because this is what we're seeing. The experience is immeasurable, really. You've seen this happen before. You've seen what's coming. We have to educate them on what is coming and what's going to happen if we don't do some of these things. A lot of people will understand and a whole bunch won't. So you're going to have a lot of people yelling in here, but if we educate them beforehand, then you may tone some of that down. Maybe that's just, I have my head in the sand, I don't know, but.
It's the sandwich.
No, I can
It's the
agree with
sandwich
what you're
theory.
saying. And it's very true.
I'm asking you to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
You know what? But the minute you make them the peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you tell them you're out of peanut butter, they're going to be in here saying,
We didn't want peanut butter anyway, we
wanted
want
peanut
ham.
butter.
Yeah, that's what they'll say, if they want the turkey.
And, well, they want the turkey, but they don't necessarily want to pay for the turkey. And I think that's the challenge that you have is we live in a representative democracy where folks hire us to do their work on their behalf, and they must appreciate the work that we're doing because they're not here.
That's
And
a great
so-
assumption to make.
So my question is then, how do you educate someone who is
Non-existent.
they're too busy. They've got their life going on. They've got things that are going on in the world. They don't have time to come to city council, Tuesday night.
And if they do come, they're not listening because they're mad. And so they're only talking. So, and we can we can listen and go ahead on knowing that it's gonna blow over eventually, but.
Well, I say that's the reason that I ended up being on the city council. It's the 100 things that they do right. I joined the city council because of the one thing they did wrong. And that's why I joined. Now, when I got here, it was a whole nother story.
Hi, my name's Will. I'm the mayor.
But that's, I mean, I think that's a lot of people. A lot of people, it's definitely a concern. So, but then that's the responsibility that I think that we have as a group is to ensure, whether they're involved or not involved, is that we set this the course, the city on the correct course. And I can't knowingly pass this budget and go, you know what, the city's on the best course, because I don't feel like I'm providing them either the cuts or the increase in revenue to pay for the day-to-day operations and to be able to have the grant. Because if you tell me as a taxpayer you need $400,000 to get $1 million worth of work done, and you don't have the money set aside, that to me is dumb.
Well, it's 400,000 for $6 million worth of stuff.
Right.
But anyway, and I don't know that anybody's arguing with that. I think when you look at the things that we can do, it all seems to come in the same place. And so, for instance, you bump up the public utility tax, it all hits the water, sewer, garbage bill. So you got a 7% increase in all of those rates, plus this huge tax thing that came over the top of it. Everybody's going to notice, and they're going to be in here yelling. They're already complaining about 7% every year. How can, who are you people? And nobody does that 7% every year. And we know that there are reasons for it, but they don't see it. When they see it's not 7% this year, it's 17. There'll be backlash. So somehow we have to educate them why we're doing these things.
I think Ms. Coleman is creating the story with the water study.
Yes.
That will show us that, hey, you need $3 million just in projects that you were supposed to probably do 10 years ago that you didn't. And we got to get those going before we get these other $20 million in projected projects that you're going to need over the next 20 years. And who has to pay for that? It's an enterprise fund. The people that are going to pay for it are the people who are using the service in this case. So we're in a really difficult situation.
Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
if we cut, we'll be damned for cutting. If we increase, we'll be damned for increasing. Or we can do what a lot of our predecessors have done, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've done nothing. We've
And that's
chosen-
wrong.
But
we've
we're still
chosen
in
to
the
do
same
nothing. And
spot
those are your
for-
three.
And that's wrong.
Those are your three choices: cut, increase, do nothing. And we've done do nothing for many years. I mean, because
So we've done do nothing. Have we cut?
Yeah.
This is ignorance. So yes, so we've cut,
We've cut.
and
Yeah.
we've done nothing.
Well, we have
Okay,
done
well-
something, we've raised 7% in anticipation of the needs of part of our capital expenses,
Right.
but
Right.
not the whole plan.
But we didn't look at the whole plan. We didn't see the whole plan.
the water and
But we
sewer
did do
funds have
some.
increased 63% since I've been on council.
And we still have one of the lowest rates
And
in
we
the
still
area.
have one of the lowest rates in the area.
But
there again, you just said we need to
We
watch
can't
out
do
for
that.
ourselves and make our
But
own
this is
plans.
why we're the lowest rates in the area, because we continually compare ourselves to everybody else.
You know,
It's the
it would
one
be
thing that
nice
we
to
throw
take
out
a
there.
step forward on our own rather than following somebody else.
But it's the one thing that we can put out there that people understand. Oh, well, they raised it, but it's still lower than Ridgeville. They don't see the underneath part of all of this. That's what they see.
But there again, that's what Mike's saying, it's educating the people.
Okay, but we tried to do that as well. You see how many people are here.
Well,
How many
hopefully,
people come to
hopefully
yours?
there's hundreds of
One,
people
two?
out there watching us tonight and figuring
Yeah.
out this discussion.
Nobody's
If they
trying
don't
harder
like
than
it,
him.
come and see us next week.
Right.
The challenge of educating the folks is that you have to have a willing
That's right.
audience. And I've seen some communities that have communities of 50, 60,000 people, and they get 8, 9 people to show up to a council meeting. It's just,
is what it is.
I think that there's a way to do, I think, you know, if we look at some of the bond measures that, or not bond measures, or tax increase measures that we put up in the past, I think we have not done a good job. If I'm just being honest, and I'm doing a self-reflection in the mirror, we have done a horrible job at messaging. We have not been a cohesive group. We have not had bought-in from some of the departments who we've requested, you know, hey, we want to try to get you some funds to help. We've not had buy-in from there and their help. Those things, when you look at the total, it's like we kind of just shoot ourselves in the foot every time, and we don't have a good message that when we come out there. We've already, almost out of the gate, we've split our electorate who is voting. They're already 50-50 split, and that makes it very difficult to pass measures. It's not surprising that it went down by 17 votes on one of the measures that we ran, and the other ones. It's because the community is split on it. It just makes it a very tough. People are going to form their own opinions based upon the information or what they hear, or sometimes what they read on the Voice of Woodland. Sometimes that's how they come to an opinion on something.
Well, they should.
Yeah, I mean, everyone gets their news and information from their own place. I just think it's something that I think we need to have a very serious discussion on, and decide as a group, do nothing, cut, or increase, or maybe a combination of the two. Because the path that we're on right now, it's not sustainable, especially if we have a downturn in the economy. The only glimmer of hope from a revenue standpoint too is we do have this new RV dealership, which will bring should bring a tremendous tax, retail sales tax to the city, which will help. But is that enough? And is that completely the answer? And I don't know if it is or not. And I don't want to. And one of the things that, you know, since Councilmember McCall left, I've tried to not be the council member that, you know, because I realize that, hey, my mouth is running a lot, and I don't want it to always be, but it's something that concerns me, and I want to raise it up as a discussion point, because I really feel like it's important, and I think we need to have a conversation about it. You know, Councilmember McCall and I used to be able to argue philosophically back and forth, and this is just my perception of kind of where we're at, and I think we really need to look at it. But hey, this is a group effort. If 4 of you come back and say, thanks, Councilmember Fredericks, it's a great idea, it's nice, we really don't want to have that discussion, I'm okay with it. I said my piece, and I'm okay with that. But I just, from my perspective, I think it's a discussion that we need to have.
Ms. Humber.
I don't disagree. I totally agree. I think I've agreed with you every year, but that doesn't seem like we get there. We don't. It's a tough conversation, so we don't have it. And I think you're right. It's going to have to be a combination of probably both. I don't know that we can do one. I think it probably needs to be a combination of both. I disagree a little bit when you say we've done nothing. We haven't done the things we needed to do probably, but we've done a few things. We've made cuts. We've done, you know, and I think that we just need to do more. We need to do, and we need to talk about it, and you're right. But when you figure out how we can talk about it so we can take it out to those, our voters, because they're the ones that don't always understand. And that's what I said. When we tell them that, oh, we're lower than Ridgefield, or higher than Ridgefield, but lower than Longview, or whatever it is, that feels good. So then that's okay. They don't understand why we need to do this. And I don't know how to explain it to them, because most of them don't want to hear it.
Well, then that's true, though, but that's mainly because people don't really care, the majority of people, I would say, my opinion. They don't care if we're higher or lower than Ridgefield. They only care about what's coming out of their pocket every month.
But
So we could be
close.
the highest place in the state, but if they're used to that level, and then all of a sudden you bump it up, even if it's just 1%, I mean, that's a big deal. and even if we're the lowest and you just bump it up just to be, you know, comparable to everybody else, that doesn't matter. They only care about what we're taking out of the pocket. They don't see where it goes. Well, partly because they're not here, but, or they don't ask, but,
Well, they're affected by it.
it's, they don't, you know, they don't see what's happening. All they see are, you know, a bunch of Scrooges behind a desk that are stealing their money. So,
Yes, Mr. Bin.
Personally, I think it's time that we had the conversation. And so my question is, how do we decide if we're supposed to have that conversation? We need to decide pretty soon because we're getting pretty
Well,
late.
the next question that's coming up to the table right now is from me. Is there anything in this budget that you want to change at this point, or are we ready to move forward? So that question is back to you right now, and I think I just answered what you're asking.
Okay. Then I think we need to have some conversations about how we increase the revenue. If we tried cutting, we've tried doing nothing, let's take a look at how do we increase the revenue? And there are some that we can do on our own, some that are voter approved, but then how do we have that conversation? To move forward and decide which of these things do we?
So
look at?
the voter question will come during the retreat. So anything that has to do with voter approval will come during the retreat and moving forward on that, because that's something that will be an ongoing discussion over a course of a few months before I think it will probably be due in August sometime of whether or not we'll move forward and if you will move forward in November. Some of the other items that are, where's my list at here? Levy lift will be part of that discussion. Fees are an ongoing conversation. Like I said, Mr. Goddard just reviewed his, and council approved his recommendations for his fee increases for his department. And when will the fees be reviewed again, or is that
We
ongoing
do
now?
entire review like in June and July.
So those are coming as well. So when we look at business license fees, and on the back we've got fees, charges, and permitting, those types of things. I know Ms. Coleman is thinking outside the box and trying to figure out how to bring more revenue into her department. So Public Works will be Park Board?
Bake sale.
Bake sales. So we talk about charging for park usage. Yeah. Everyone pony up.
Yeah.
It's going to the parks. So those fees are being looked at, and that's something that's ongoing. The one thing that, if you want to have a discussion about this evening with this budget, that you can do something now. We've already talked about the card room. That's going to be going into 2019. I think we're all in agreement that the business owner needs to come in on that one. Impact fees is an ongoing discussion right now, and that's being discussed at the Finance Committee level. And so the things that you can talk about this evening are license fees for vehicle tabs and and public utility tax. Those are the two things that you can have a discussion on this evening in revenue. The other things are much more in-depth conversations, and will take time, and we'll start those during the retreats.
So we're at 6.5% on public utility tax. Holy cow! Moving it up to higher than that is just a wild number, and it hits right where people are concerned already. But I think it's time to look at that. And it looks like we talked about a huge increase to 16%, bringing in $500,000. But somewhere in there is the right number, I think. Where are we in relation to other cities at 6.5%? And if there's no limit, 16 is just a number. What about 20?
No, 16, isn't 16 the limit, or is there no limit?
But there was no
There's no
limit.
There
limit.
is no
There's
limit?
no limit.
There's no limit.
Battleground, I
So-
think, has 18.
I think so.
Yeah.
Battleground has 18.
Yeah.
So at some point, that's one that I think we could take a look at and try to figure out what is the right number there. Maybe 16's too high, maybe that's too much of an increase all at once, but we have the leeway to do that, and it's one that will bring in some to help our budget.
Well, when trying to determine that number, you've got a list in front of you of what the departments have given you on what they believe is necessary to achieve their daily operations or make it easier for them. So I think that should probably be part of your discussion as well, of what's important.
Now, the vehicle can come out of the gambling tax, though, is that correct, for the police?
Yes, for the police, yes.
So we don't have to worry about that?
Correct.
Well, hold on. So that's the one thing that I'd like to see added in, even if we have to take the money out of
Okay.
the 301. I'd personally like to see the second police vehicle added, and put another 58,000 in there just to keep the rotation,
Okay.
correct.
So add that, is there objection to that?
None from me.
We can't take a vote, so I'm asking no.
Right.
So if we can go ahead and put that second vehicle on the list and get that
I think
budget.
budget prevents individual members of council from creating amendments to the budget.
Yeah.
You can strike out, you can add in whatever you'd like. Been there, done that.
Okay, so Mrs. Rounds, continue on with you were asking about the vehicle?
Well, I said we could go ahead and pay that out, so we don't have to worry about that. That can come out of the gambling tax.
Okay, yes,
And we have the funds,
yes.
so.
It sounds like we just added it to the list.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Sorry.
yeah. Rude. I should have,
Should've gaveled me down.
no side
Point of
conversations. Okay.
I lost my train of
Yeah.
thought, but that, at least I got that out. So we are gonna go ahead with the
Yes,
police
yes,
vehicle.
we'll add that in.
Yes, okay.
I didn't hear an objection.
Well, let's see. If we go 8.5% tax rather than 6.5%, that's not raising it too much, but it'll give us some. How much will that bring us in, Mary?
Oh, I just brought up my spreadsheet here.
Yeah, it's on the spreadsheet.
That's not enough.
That's an additional probably $22,000.
Oh, is that all?
That's per month though, right?
No, that's overall. So if you look at the bottom number underneath, so at 8%, it's going to be 21,334 above what we're already bringing in. Correct?
Well, I put it in the chart, 8.5 on,
You put 8.5 in there.
I'm doing it right here in front of me.
Oh,
I
I was
have-
looking at the
I have
wrong.
the
Oh,
spread-
sorry, I was
I
looking
have
at the
the
wrong
spreadsheet.
one. I'm
So-
sorry.
So on the 7% rate increase with the 8.5% public utility tax would bring an increase over current of 117,816.
Okay, I was looking at the wrong
That
number. Sorry.
includes the water and.
Water, sewer, garbage, recycle.
So the public utility tax portion
That's only the public utility tax.
of the 117, okay, all right.
Sorry, what did
That's the
So
increase.
she asked about 8.5%
That's the
increase. How much is it going to net us? It's going to net us about 117,000. Remember, these are off slightly on here. She took a snapshot of the year.
10% brings in 173,000.
148, is that correct, Ms. Ripp?
Pardon me?
A 10% public
Is
utility
an
tax.
increase of 192.
So it's a little bit more than
It
these.
says 173.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than what's listed
Okay,
here.
okay.
Um,
I think what we need, if we go with the 10% and the 7%, is, because we're gonna have people in here, there's no doubt about it, when it comes to a meeting. We need to we need to have it in front of us. And the individual on the council needs to have it, what is this gonna pay for? So that we can explain it to the public when they come to us.
I can tell you what it's gonna pay for, the cost of doing business as a city. That's it. I mean,
Yeah, but that's not.
That's good for you, but that doesn't get for most people.
Yeah.
Well, all I'm saying is,
Well, you're taking
I wonder what you-
200,000 out of reserves to fund the general fund this year.
And I can
That's
tell
a
you
good, that's a good point right there. That we cannot sustain that.
100,000 out of streets this year, and we cut 25,000 out of lights on those two items. There's 125,000 right there that covers what that tax would increase.
so that's $325,000 to keep the lights on. Did I do the math right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and we're looking at 175. What
But-
do you tie that to? I don't know what you tie that to, other than we're not gonna make any changes but we're gonna start getting ourselves out of this
Hole that we're in.
hole that we're in.
That
We
we're
haven't
great.
replaced any
We're
of the
saving it, and then
vehicles
we're
of
moving it and
public
spending
works.
it. We're saving it, moving it, and spending it. So we're playing the shell game.
I brought it up at the finance committee meeting tonight. It's like, me having $100 taken out of my check to go into savings every week, and then me going on Friday to the ATM machine and withdrawing $100 out of my savings account so I can buy groceries. That's the equivalent to the household. That's what we're doing in Woodard.
Exactly what we're doing.
And I don't take any of this lightly. This is a
Oh,
big deal. But
I don't
I'm all
think
ears for
anybody
what should we cut?
wants to
and
raise
trying to find it.
taxes, but there's gotta be some source of revenue to maintain the city. Period.
Well, and then the understanding, if there's that extra money and like putting in for all the grants, you know, we're shooting ourselves in the foot by not having the money to be able to do the improvements that everybody wants.
Absolutely right, but can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Did you realize that that could happen if we raised the taxes so we had the money so that we could do all of those things? Did you realize that before you sat here?
No.
I know.
And
that's the
that's- and
message
that's-
that's not getting out there. And more people, I think, would be okay with it.
Well-
but I don't know how to do it.
For those that are listening out there tonight, you know, there is a
So-
lot to learn. And it's been a big learning process for me. And I was probably just like the average person. I've stood in front of council before and complained. And you get on the other side of it and a better understanding of everything. And I'm sorry, people out there, not everybody knows everything. They might think they do, but we don't. So you have to learn what the heck is going on, and that all of us sitting here tonight, we are here and dedicated to the city to do the best that we possibly can do. I live on X amount of dollars, just like everybody else in the world, but by gosh, I want to have my police protection. I want to have my fire department, and I want to have my water and be able to flush my toilet. So, you know, if we've got to raise it to get that $500,000 that we got sitting here that we can do something is for the betterment of our city, let's have at it. And we can just be courageous and strong and bold and stand our ground.
And I don't disagree, but I don't have any more money. At the end of the month, I'm lucky if I have $10 left. So you raise my taxes and my water bill, I'm gonna have to shut off my water, so I can only have heat half the time, or I can only have water. And I'm serious.
Well, and I understand people run really, really tight.
You know?
I really do. I understand that part of it too. But, you know, you see
I'm not disagreeing with you, Jen.
yeah, oh, no. But it is sad when you have somebody that has a lower fixed income and whatnot, and you hear them complain about, well, can we fix this street, or this one's got this? Do they realize what it takes? You know, everybody's got to pay their portion.
Yes.
And,
But I think that's an argument for finding some way to raise the revenues if it's only to be able to take advantage of free money. If that's the only thing that we're looking at is taking advantage of free money, but there's more.
There's
when
more
you look
to
at the
it,
things that
yeah.
are being left out of
Out.
the budget that are going to haunt us for the next 10 years because we didn't do it this year because there wasn't money in the budget, then for the next 10 years or 20, we're not going to have this. The same things are going to be on the list. That's the issue that's coming. That nobody's here to listen to, but we're hearing it.
I think what I'm hearing is that I won't say all, but a majority is in agreement that utility tax is probably on the table this year, and there needs to be an increase, if not all the way, partial way, just to recover. I mean, we just identified $325,000, and that's only a portion of what we've had to pull out of our savings account just to keep the lights on, as Mr. Fredericks would say. even if we can recover a portion of that and not go after free money. I think that the 469,000, I'm looking at the 16%. I don't think council's ready to tie that extra money to anything at this point. And I think the conversation should stick to how do we just recover and keep the lights on, and have that be a further discussion of what to tie money to, or what we're missing out on service-wise when we look at this list from staff during the retreat, and then have the discussion further. Is what I think council should stick to this evening, if that's what you choose to move on with.
So 12% closes the whole gap, the 325,000, correct?
Yeah, just shy of, it looks like. Probably more like 13%.
So that is an increase on a, I'm just throwing out math here, it's an increase on a $250 water garbage sewer bill. It's an increase of $7.50 per month at 12%. So your bill is gonna go up $15. That is not taking into consideration the 7% increase that's on top of that. I just use 250 as a flat number.
Yep.
So that your overall expense is $15 on a 2-month billing cycle.
That raises just over 300 grand.
Correct.
Close to it, yeah. Mr. Goddard?
The one thing I was going to point out, and that is, Tracy had mentioned that there are some significant water projects that are coming up. So one of the things that you could do, whereas sewer isn't as bad a shape, what you could do is you could increase the water rates so that you fund the water fund, so you're putting money towards capital. But on the sewer side, where you're not as capital critical, you could raise the sewer tax independently so that your sewer tax rate might go up to, say in this case, 8.5%. That gives you an extra $48,000, whereas you're not necessarily raising the other taxes as high. So that way, you have your earmarked money towards your capital needs on the water side, but you have your tax revenue from the sewer side that would give you the ability to fund additional cars or whatever it is you want to do with your general fund taxes. So now you're kind of massaging it so that you get the money where you need it, as opposed to just flat rates of one bucket or the other.
This money comes into the general fund.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, you could not increase the sewer as much. Like if you go to the 4% increase on the sewer, you'd be at $82,000 additional for sewer. Whereas you might stay with the 7% on the water.
Not do 7 across all the way across,
Right.
or 7 all the way across the board, because the sewer fund's doing great.
It's doing okay.
The sewer fund is sustaining itself right now, and if you did that for a year or two, you'd probably be okay, but you need to make sure that if you do that, that the funds go back into the Public Works Department for the streets and the vehicles to maintain public works. I would encourage that, not that it goes to anything other.
Sewer funds can't go into the other department. Sewer is sewer.
But if it goes, I'm talking about the general funds, the taxes for the
Tax
general
money.
fund. That tax money that you're saving by not raising it goes back into public works for the streets and for the vehicles in public works.
So just to be clear, we're talking about not raising the sewer rates, but increasing the public utility tax on the sewer.
On the sewer.
More to fund the other things.
Yes.
Public works.
Within public works. That's my
I
recommendation.
thought they were talking about increasing.
Because it doesn't make sense
sewer
when you're
4%.
suffering in public works to take that money and put it anywhere else.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And I wouldn't recommend it if it wasn't gonna go back to public works.
Well, the reason why that's important.
That's my opinion.
The reason why that's an important question is because if you have $6 million worth of water fund capital needs,
but only 2 million in the sewer fund capital needs, you don't necessarily have to raise their rates in the
This, the next couple of years, you can kind of say, okay, let's live where they're at, but then know that they can go up.
Well, we're under every indication that we see with this water plan is that we're gonna end up having to possibly raise rates further.
I said I wouldn't be surprised by that. I don't know that for a fact,
Wouldn't be
but
surprised.
it wouldn't surprise me.
I also think that taking the current rates and projecting that out based on what your sewer plan said is an important exercise before you do any cuts.
Well, and the sewer plan is new. The sewer plan is from 2017, so it's just, you know, a year old, where the water plan is 2012.
And we haven't done the rate analysis on that of where we need to be on the sewer.
No, not yet.
Okay.
That's part of what we're hoping to accomplish with the rate study,
Okay.
do both parts.
The current sewer plan does have a rate study in there of what we're charging, summary of it and what they anticipated to bring into the sewer plan, so, it seemed to be, and they did figure it at the 7% per year,
Okay.
so it was included in the actual sewer plan.
But the rate study could come back and say, you can slow your roll a little bit.
I
Or-
believe based on what I see that's in the capital projects out of the collection system and the treatment system, I believe that we would be okay to not collect as much in a year or two, but not saying that you could do that forever.
Right.
I think what I'm saying is the sewer plan has a little more leniency on there as far as capital projects, and we're ahead with one capital project than the water plan where we can go.
Okay.
So the other thing to be aware of is anytime we make changes to our current ordinance, that's over and above what is already earmarked in there, we have to give public notice, hold a public hearing, give notices in the utility bill, and then there's the implementation schedules, which takes about 4 months in order to get the right timing of the stuff.
In order to raise the utility tax.
No, for water or sewer rates.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not allowed to vote, but are we allowed to give a number to see where we're all at? It could be 0 to.
Okay.
Unless votes are not going
Well, I don't know if you can. How do we? We'll go, Mr.
You can't
Ben-
vote, but you can all
But
give
Mr.
your
Bender,
opinion.
what's your
You can all
thoughts?
give your opinion.
Where do you think it needs to land?
That would be the first one you ask, so no pressure.
I'm hearing that we're looking at like 320 grand or 300 grand in that neighborhood.
So
That we're
10%.
falling that much short. If nothing else, that's amounts that would get us huge amounts of state or federal money. If nothing else,
Okay.
that's one big numbers.
I'm hearing about a 12.5% from you. Okay, Mrs. Graham, where are you landing on this sheet?
Probably about the same.
Okay, Mr. Chapman,
Yeah, right in that.
12.5. Okay, Ms. Humbert,
I agree.
Mr. Plaza.
We're talking tax increase, right?
We're talking specifically
increase?
utility tax.
Yeah,
Public
tax
utility
increase.
tax. Public utility tax.
Right. I'll get to my answer in just 1 second.
Okay.
I just have a really hard time, and I'll even leave myself out of this mix. But we've got 8 pretty smart people up here. Normally 5 or 6 excellent advisors down there. And I just don't see why we can't find a way to get to where we need to be without immediately resorting to tax increases.
Okay.
So
I'm hearing
I'm a big
stay at
0%.
6.5%
Yes.
is what I'm hearing.
Stay at 6.5.
Find
Today-
another way to do it.
Okay, Mrs. Rouse.
I'm at the 12.5%, not that I like taxes, to raise taxes any more than anybody else.
Okay.
I just don't see us being able to maintain or do anything without an increase.
Okay, Mr. Fredericks.
Hold on a second, please.
And I don't disagree with Mr. Plaza, however, I do feel like our department heads have gone above and beyond this year, looking at and cutting and trying to find other ways, and till there's nothing left. And if this does nothing but get us $1 million for $20, it's not that, but
But then what happens next year? Do we raise it another 7% to get us where we need to be, and then the following year after that another? I mean, it's, at some point, we need to take a step back and say, there's gotta be another way than just raising taxes. You know, raising taxes is the easy way out.
well, no, it's not.
There's not, well, it's not easy because we gotta listen to it, but as far as, you know, putting your elbows to the grindstone and taking care of business, it's an easy way to get that money.
Well,
Well, I disagree again. I feel like our department heads have spent an enormous amount of time with each of their budgets, going over what can we do with that, what do we absolutely have to have. If we don't do this, what happens? And bringing that to us and saying, okay, we don't have to fix this, but if we don't, this is what's gonna happen. I don't know where we can, I'd love to have some other place to do it than raise taxes, believe me. Again, at the end of the month, I have $10, that's,
No,
I totally agree.
No, and I think our department heads have done fantastic as well. This is no criticism towards the
Oh, I know
department
that.
heads at all.
I just don't know
You
where else to look.
Neither do I. If I had that answer, I'd tell you right now.
I know.
But there's gotta be a way to, you know, at least get us partially away there without slapping the big tax stamps down.
well, in my opinion, if we get more businesses into the community, it's gonna take some of the burden off having to raise taxes.
So, and that
Because
was.
that's where our revenue is gonna come from.
That's right.
Is from the business.
Yep.
So we need to get more businesses into this town.
I agree with that 100%.
And if our sewer and water are ready to do that, then we can get them on board.
We need to make it easier for businesses to come here.
Yes.
And we've started that.
And I agree with you, we have started that.
Yes, we have.
The turkey sandwich.
Mr. Fredericks, where are you landing on this piece of paper? I'm rolling you in the parking lot.
So, since I've been on the council, I've only advocated for one other tax, and it was the public utility tax to fund public safety.
Yep.
We are in a situation where I appreciate the fact that, Mr. Plaza said there's 8 smart people up here. I take that as a compliment, thank you.
When he included me, I was
He
so
did.
super excited
He
about that.
did. However,
Thank you.
I have gone through this. I can't find it. And everyone knows the amount of work that I go through every year on this budget to look and find the detail. And sometimes I find, hey, maybe I find 25,000. Sometimes, some years I found 50. But those were years where it was, hey, here's your budget that's $275,000 out of whack. So that makes sense that I would find that. We've been provided a balanced budget for 3 years. Is this the 4th year?
Third year.
Third year.
Third year, thank you.
Third year that I've been provided a balanced budget. I've gone through, I've looked at the expenditures. I cannot find ways to cut unless we drastically cut services, some of which are mandated by the state that we provide. So I'm in agreement. 12.5% is a good start. It increases. It does increase the proposed tax from the current of $8.13 to $15.63 per month. So on a $250 bill, I just use that because it's a simple number. Not that I'm saying that that's what it is. You're looking at a $16.25 tax. What you currently pay now, you'd be moving to $31.25 under the proposal. I feel confident in the fact that we're moving $325,000 to fund to keep the lights on. That tonight, when there's nobody sitting in the audience staring down at me, that is something that I could easily pass with people outside and no room to sit. That I feel completely confident in passing that because I think that makes most sense. When I first started, I came in with preconceived notions that, you know what, the city is wasting money. I found some when I first first started, but I'm out. I can't find any more. What do you want us to cut? We can't cut streets any further. We can't cut, and we have robbed Peter to pay Paul. Every year, it's like, okay, well, we won't fund streets, but we'll move that over to police, or we'll move this over here to fund the parks. We got to water the parks this year, so we'll move some money over here because we're going to react to somebody who's upset with us because we haven't watered the parks, so we got to move the funding over here. But we're going to cut something else to do that because that's what everybody's talking about. So I think that this makes sense. I understand that it will have ramifications on the vulnerable in our community. I get that, and I understand that. And that's what I struggle with the most when I look at increasing the taxes, that the decision will ultimately impact some people that are on fixed incomes and don't have the ability to pay. And that, to me, is the most difficult part about the decision. So I think that makes prudent sense, but I also understand. I get what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, and I certainly appreciate the concerns that you've raised, Councilman.
Mrs. Ripp.
Mayor. Oh, just another comment. 3 years ago, when the budget was not balanced, Mr. Fredericks spent a lot of time saying, hey, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And that's the one thing I remember. And there were a lot of ways we just went through really difficult questions to cut because there was no other choice. There wasn't any other way to do that. Now, for 3 years since I've been gone, we're balancing the budget, and what I'm hearing in this budget session is department heads saying, okay, I've balanced my budget because I don't have another choice, and yet here are these other things that are happening. We've cut these out because that's how we do this now. But if we do that, this is what will happen later. And so I think we're past the point of trying to cut. I think we have to find other. I think that we've done a great job of getting to that cut point. Now we have to take the other step. So we've done that the first half. And we have to take the other step and go forward. That's where I see from what I saw before, where it's different.
Mrs. Ripp.
In regards to some of the senior citizen, low-income, disabled people, we do have the program for the utility bills, and it's probably time to maybe revisit those levels again. We did make some changes to that when we did our last rate increases, but we try to look at that every couple of years, but it's probably time to revisit that again.
Does that need to go to general government finance? Okay. Can we put that on the list for the next meeting, please? Without objection from the finance committee, I should say. That should probably be a topic of.
We would love to do that.
Yes, we would.
All right.
Tough choices for sure, but I think that I think they're prudent.
Okay. Thank you. We'll make some adjustments and bring you a budget. When would they get? Is it at the next meeting? Where's that calendar at? So you can expect.
Friday.
Okay. You'll see it on Friday and vote for it on, or is it public?
First reading of.
First reading on Monday. Is that correct?
The 19th.
The 19th.
In the public hearing.
Okay. Okay. Any other sections of the budget that council would like changed, modified, or well, I guess it's the same thing. Modified, added, deleted at this time.
Second police vehicle is added without objection, correct?
Yes. All right. Hearing nothing else. Chair, accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
9:13. I know. Me too.
What's it, Bill, I'm sorry, my money from here, I didn't have anything.